It's time for Cascading Style Sheets, Part 2, the external connection. Or what I like to say, here we go again. There are 3 ways to inject styles into an HTML document. Number 1 would be externally, and that's what we're talking about, and that's what this chapter is all about. You can do internals, and that's what we did in the previous chapter. Understand, I do believe it's important you really grasp the information in that chapter before you use this one. Just a thought. The third type is inlines. Inlines we'll talk about later. Let's concentrate on externals because that's why we are here. When you create an external cascading style sheet, you're putting the code within a separate style sheet file. Now that style sheet file will have the extension of CSS and it might look something like this, mainstyles.css. That file can then be attached to one or more HTML documents, and therein, folks, lies the power. When we did internals last chapter, we were modifying one document at a time. When you do externals, you can take that one external document and apply it to 1,000 HTML pages. Therefore, we stabilize presentations throughout the site, and that is a very important thing to know. Now, they can be created and edited in many ways, but we'll use Dreamweaver primarily to make our CSS external sheets. However, if you feel like you want to take a risk, you can use any standard text processing application. That's up to you. This is what the code looks like if you're interested. Font family, font size, etc. Very, very English, very user-friendly. It is easy to write this stuff, and I've been writing it from scratch for years, but I do rely on Dreamweaver because it does a good job and it obviously does it faster. This code represents an H1 and part of an H2 tag to modify them to what you see up here. Very easy to work with, but remember, if you decide to write it yourself, the code must be done exactly the way you see it. Like the word font weight must have the hyphen or it won't work. Bolder, obviously, must be spelled correctly. Coding, and this is actually scripting, is a very precise way to work, but once you get it down, actually, it isn't that difficult. Let's talk about the operative word in cascading style sheets, and that's cascade. Think about it this way. Style rules cascade. For example, if you have multiple CSS rule files defining the same tag, there are rules that determine which one it's going to use. You got 3 different files, 3 different p tags. Which one is it going to use? It can't use all 3. If we're making internal style sheets, they will have a rule over or precedence over external ones. They will rule, if you will. If we do an inline style, that's going to have precedence over internals and externals. You want to think about it this way. It's real easy. The closer the rule is to what it changes, the more power it has. It's that simple. Now look at this. I've got an external style sheet where I'm modifying the p tag to make the text red. That's one. But I have an internal style sheet where the p tag is defined as bold and black, and I have an inline style where the paragraph tag is defined as italic and blue. Now look at an inline style. We don't use these very often because it violates the cardinal rule of cascading style sheets. It brings the content and presentation back together into one, and the whole purpose of these things is to separate content and presentation. You have to put all that extra stuff inside that p tag, like style equal color and font style equal italic. All these things have to be put inside there, and this is a one-off. You want to use it again, you got to do it all over again. So I'm not a big fan of these, and they're not used that often. We use externals and internals, actually externals more than internals. But if we keep going with this, that's the way the text is going to look. Why? Because an inline style is the closest to what it's changing. It's right there in the text. That's how this works, cascading. Now let's talk about this another way with externals. We create an external style sheet called main CSS. And in main CSS, our paragraph tag is changed to blue. We have a secondary CSS file, another external, called secondary, and we've got the text as being black. This is how it might look as they load. You'll notice that main is on top of secondary. The text will be black. Why? Because secondary is closer than main, even though it's only one line above it. We might think, normally speaking, what's on top has more power. Nope. It's what's closer that has more power. Let's make this a little bit more difficult. We have main CSS, and in main CSS, we have a paragraph tag modification, blue and italic. In our secondary CSS, we modify the p tag to go to black. But we didn't change the italic one. We just didn't do anything. We said use default. The text will be black, but it will be italic. because I didn't specify in the secondary one that italic must be used. It used the italic from main. Cascading style sheets. You get it? With all that done, let's get into this thing and do some real-world examples.